Hello everyone, welcome back to MLS Moves. Please make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Don't forget, when we hit 5,000 subscribers, we're not going to only be giving away one jersey, we're going to be giving away 2 jerseys. Yes, that's right, 2 jerseys. Make sure you subscribe so we can hit our goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of July. Now, back to the video. San Diego FC is looking to come to MLS with a bang and make a lot of noise in their first year in the league. There's been rumors of them signing big name players on the global stage, investing a lot of money into their academy system, and trying to make sure that their team is competing at the highest level in the league from day one. I brought on Tony Sanchez of San Diego Football to talk about what the expectations are in the first season of San Diego FC and how are the fans reacting to the club and what they have done so far. Tony, welcome to the show, man. I'm so glad to have you. I can't wait to talk about San Diego FC.
No, thank you once again for the invitation. This is awesome.
Yeah, so I guess I want to start off with, how are the people in San Diego feeling about finally getting an MLS team? Because this is something they've been trying to get for a long time. Obviously, you guys had the San Diego Loyal, who are no longer, they dissolved, I think, back in 2023. RIP, right? RIP to Lennon Donovan, too. You know, big part of the program there. How are people feeling about finally getting an MLS team in San Diego?
Well, that's a loaded question of itself, just because there's so many layers that go into what really came about to put this MLS team here in San Diego in the first place. You mentioned San Diego Loyal being the USL Championship team that ushered in this era of professional soccer in the men's side. San Diego Wave doing the same, and eventually it grew into the MLS franchise that now cohabitates in the same stadium and Snapdragon Stadium with the Wave. But it's also, there's people who have mixed emotions. Back in 2018, November, there was an election here called Soccer City. Landon Donovan was a huge proponent of it. There was a lot of money being invested locally, but eventually it just didn't come through. And that eventuality still needed to have a stadium where the Chargers had the Qualcomm Stadium, and the Padres used to play as well. So the San Diego State's so the school here locally, the university, ended up taking over the project, built Snapdragon Stadium, and now that has San Diego has a capacity to field an MLS team in general. But again, there's those people who look back and say, well, at what cost? Here's US soccer again. Like, okay, why couldn't this just kind of work out? But there's also an untapped market that San Diego Loyal nor San Diego Wave have been able to tap into. And a lot of that has to do with potentially the other side of the language here in San Diego, the Spanish language, the Spanish speaking community. And at the end of the day, could these 3 projects have lived here in San Diego? Potentially, because it's just such a hotbed. But again, to answer your question, it's a general excitement at this point. Some wounds have healed from that USL change and eventual end with San Diego Loyal. But with the MLS coming, it's really now a highlight of the city that this is a destination, and it's almost like what took so long? Like we've been knowing San Diego has what it takes, so what took so long? But it's here now.
No, exactly. And, honestly, when the Chargers decided to move to Los Angeles in 2017, RIP again, right? I honestly thought that was going to make it a shoe-in for San Diego to get an MLS club, especially with them being so hell-bent on expanding like crazy the league. I think since the Chargers left San Diego, there's probably been 6 or 7, maybe even 8 MLS expansion teams since then. And MLS likes to be in markets where there's not a lot of competition with professional teams. That way that they get the priority, and that's what the fan base and all the locals can really cling on to the team and support them fully. So honestly, I am shocked more than anything that it was team number 30 is when San Diego came in. I thought it would have been a lot sooner than that, especially when you look at some of the other markets. But you talked a little bit about having all the right ingredients, right? You talked about San Diego has what it takes to be a soccer town and support this club. Now, do you think that it's going to be day one that stadium is going to be packed at Snapdragon Stadium? Like, is it going to be like Charlotte FC? Is it going to be like Atlanta United? Is that stadium going to be sold out every game in the beginning?
That's the key. In the beginning, I do feel like there's going to be 35,000 plus at Snapdragon Stadium, which is about the capacity, give or take a couple thousand, depending on where you spread people around intelligently. But absolutely, this first season is going to be huge for SDFC. San Diego again has that fervor. It's palpable, and the people have been wanting representation in the professional men's side of things, and especially seeing what San Diego Wave again. I'm putting over San Diego Wave a lot here, but they have put 37,000 individuals into Snapdragon Stadium consistently with an average of 20,000. So that's just the lower bowl. With that, I think the majority of MLS teams, if they're able to sell out at least that lower bowl of about 20,000, give or take, after a few years, I think that's a net plus. But fans will come out. The curiosity factor will be here. Now, the key is going to be how many of those fans are going to be San Diego FC fans? How many of those fans aren't going to be away, West Coast away fans coming down? You have 3252, you have LA Galaxy, you have Portland, you have this entire West Coast that have a tropical destination now, a little bit more than LA in a way where San Diego, as you said, it's a great market, and it's primed in order to go ahead and receive so many people. Is going to be sold out, but it's going to be interesting to see if that consistency factor grows as the years go on, especially with who they field on that team, with the plans for SDFC to really be rooted in the academy pipeline from the Right to Dream project, co-owners of SDFC.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. You don't want it to be a novelty item. You, like you said, you want this to be something people want to come and see every weekend. The fan bases are energized. Charlotte FC, they've struggled to win their first 3 years. They haven't been consistent, but their stadium has, their attendance has. Like they're very strong in their support and their roots. Now, LA specifically, both teams, right? Well, the Galaxy have obviously been around since the inception of the league, but LAFC more specifically, their goal was because LA has such a high amount of Mexican American soccer fans that they were going to sign a Mexican star to try to lure some of those fans over, maybe Liga MX fans, maybe just El Tri fans. That's what their goal was. Does San Diego have to replicate that in order to get these fans, like these Mexican American fans in the San Diego area? Because that's the closest city to Mexico in California, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Currently, I am in my garage, the Two Balls and a Mic San Diego Puntos Football Studio, which is, I think, the most southwesternly podcast in the nation. Mexico is 2 streets down. I could throw a rock into my neighbor's Mexican neighbor's yard. It's that close. But no, definitely, I think San Diego has to be another place for a destination for a Mexican individual who has that sort of cachet, like Carlos Vela did. Irving El Chucky Lozano is one that's already being rumored, is something that's being circled, and people are putting figures on it. And is it a replication? Perhaps. In a lot of ways it is, because at face value, it's a Mexican star from the national team that's going to come over and probably have his way with the league in a couple of different ways. But at the same time, you're really going to go ahead and maybe take away from what the overall project is if you start putting these infinity stones of marketing into the squad at the same time. There's a lot of replication, or what seems like replication, happening, especially obviously Tom Penn being involved with SDFC. And then talking to him early on, about a year ago, we sat down with him and had a really honest conversation about, how are you going to reach out to these individuals? Something that, again, there's 2 teams that have had success in their own way with Loyal and Wave, but that market hasn't necessarily been tapped with these events that they're doing here locally in San Diego. I don't know if you've seen the images of the Chrome Ball that they have.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a 18 city panel, kind of large chrome ball. Like, it's literally an art piece that travels, and they have tours into 18 different cities of San Diego. The community is really reacting and coming out to those, and you're seeing people that you didn't see at the Loyal games. You don't see at the Wave matches. And so those fans are mutually exclusive. And then you have the other side of, like, well, at the end of the day, Chucky Lozano's coming over, whoever's coming over to represent SDFC, and they're Mexican, their career's over. Why even bother? I can't necessarily tell you outside of LA what the uptick was of viewership from Mexican El Tri supporters. when Vela joined LAFC. I don't think there was a large uptick outside of anywhere from LA. But a reminder is that you're not trying to win the world. You're not trying to win, Liga MX with that. You're trying to win the MLS. You're trying to win locally and then build from that. So while I think it might be some sort of replication, I think you kind of have to. And it's paid dividends in LA right up the five. Why can't it happen here? So it's just a matter of being intelligent of how you really take those moves and cues from what you've done, but then also not have it be a watered down in LA. If there's something that San Diegans do not like, is being anything like an LA just individual, whether it's the Dodgers, whether it's whatever you want it to be. Like that's the one kind of like, oh, you don't go there. That's
Yeah.
SC San Diego is San Diego.
Yeah, and I think that if they do get the rumored signing of Chucky Lozano across the line, which it seems like that's going to happen, right? It's a matter of if, not when.
Right.
Sorry, a matter of when, not if. My bad, got that reverse there. It seems like it's going to happen. I think that ticks both, or checks both boxes. You're getting someone who's still productive, still a very good player. Obviously, doing they just won the league at PSV in the Eredivisie. He's kind of like, I mean, his spot with the national team is kind of like a question mark right now. And I think if he, comes to MLS, it might be the death knell for his career, because that's kind of what happened to Chicharito. That's what happened to Gio dos Santos. That's what happened to Carlos. Well, Carlos Vela really didn't even want to play for the national team anymore. He kind of like checked out himself. But, the other guys, 2 or 3, it kind of was a death knell for their Mexican team career. But I just think that is just almost like a dream signing for an expansion club, especially with the opportunity. Like you said, you're 2 houses or 2 streets down from the Mexican border. Obviously, San Diego has a high Mexican American population. There's probably several Liga MX fans in that area who don't watch anything MLS that would maybe be interested in watching the league if they do get a Chucky Lozano to come play at Snapdragon Stadium. Now, you mentioned earlier about Memo Ochoa saying I think you said you debunked that. There's no interest, right, in signing him?
Yeah, no. Some of our sources have actually, recently come out and put that to rest, where it might have been a little bit of an agent kind of putting feelers out, and there's a lot of that going on where there's truth in almost anything and everything that's going on. And that's something that San Diego is really preparing itself for when it comes to being on the, you being in national, if not international headlines. Here we go. Fabrizio Romano is putting San Diego and the graphics of the crest and everything. Like it's happening, but is it really? How much of that is actually true? Memo Ochoa is one of those things where, yeah, it had something. It came out directly from Italy. The fact is, my sister works at Ben and Jerry's, and he loves vacationing with his family at Ben and Jerry's in downtown and has seen him several times. So that's technically a report. So, I mean, you kind of take everything with a grain of sugar or salt, whatever you prefer. But yeah, that's kind of where that lands as of now.
I mean, I could see that signing making sense if it was maybe team friendly, because obviously he is very popular. He's the longest tenured national team player they have. He's still their number 1 keeper. He had a so-so season in Serie A this past year. But, when you kind of think about it, I don't think Ochoa is going to come to San Diego on a discount. I think that he's wanting, I mean, why would he, when he could probably go back to Liga MX and probably make pretty good money, right? So that rumor, I could see it, but then I was like, well, it financially doesn't make any sense. And on the field, it doesn't really make any sense at this time, because you definitely want to have a good goalkeeper for an expansion team, because normally the back line is a disaster for expansion teams. The floodgates are open. Teams score a lot of goals on expansion teams, and I don't think that 40-year-old Ochoa is going to be saving a lot of shots, a lot of goals at this point in his career. But there are, like you said, there's a lot of big names being rumored with San Diego. The next one I want to talk about is Sergio Ramos. Is there any legs to that?
There is talks. There are talks happening, and that's again one of those things where, well, what does talks mean? Is that a text message? Technically, that's communication. Technically, that's negotiations. Even if you really want to get to that, some of these names that have been floating out there are ones that made contact with the club before the club made contact with them. Just again, putting those feelers out. Same thing's happening with managers. Hugo Sanchez also lives in San Diego. Had feelers put out through the Mexican ESPN avenues, and that was a story for a couple of hours. Like, is Hugo Sanchez coming to San Diego? He lives here. He's the guy hasn't coached in over a decade. Like that's just not going to happen. But with Sergio Ramos, I think that's something that does carry that heft and weight to it, because it solves exactly what you're saying, right? Expansion teams aren't necessarily known for their quintessential defending right out the gate. They're going to be flashy. They're going to be fast. They're going to be explosive. They have names. They need goals. I'm not sure how flashy, defense and how defensively minded the San Diego fan base is going to be. If they are, great, former goalkeeper, let's go. Give some goalkeeper some love. But at the end of the day, Sergio Ramos would really, again, tick those boxes. There's a lot of players that tick so many boxes from a marketing standpoint, from a playing standpoint. If you're going to field a team of youngsters, you need that veteran presence to be in those positions in order to keep that cool. And you know what? Sometimes you need to defend the 18, 19-year-old that's going to be your teammates and elbow a couple guys here and try to get away with it. Like, that's the nature of the game. And Sergio Ramos would definitely prove to be somebody to get in that section.
Now, I don't know how familiar you are with the complicated MLS rules that nobody, even half the league, even understands. I think they just kind of make things up as they go. But I'm sure you obviously know about the 3 designated player rule. The question is do you waste one of those valuable spots on a 38-year-old defender, even if he is going to be a leader of men for the club, even if he is going to stabilize the back line for maybe a year, maybe 2? Is that really what you want to spend a valuable spot like that when you only have 3 in your expansion season?
That and that's going to be definitely a key focus when it comes to what the real direction of this team is going to be. The Going back to the Right to Dream Academy and model, with FC Northland being one of the arms over in Europe that really showcases the play style that Right to Dream and SDFC is touted to have, is a fast-paced, counter-attacking, young, quick, agile play style. And when it comes to having that defense set, I think it would be smart to do that. And it almost would be smart to spread out those DP's designations, one on the defensive side, a midfielder, and an attacker. That way, you really anchor that starting 11 with those players. Now you can go ahead and put some starlets, some youngins in there as the academy starts progressing. You can still have them assimilate into the play style, because again, this is also a play style factor where you need to also put the pieces in that are going to fit with your philosophy. And let me tell you, SDFC is huge on the philosophy, and it's you can't discern the Right to Dream and SDFC San Diego MLS project away from each other, and that's just going to be something that's going to be in the DNA. So these are things that the club is going to need to consider. First of all, they need a sporting director and a manager, but this is kind of the area of growth and construction. Everything's under construction. Anything can happen. Like, just like the MLS, it's like, whose line is it anyway? The rules are made up and the points don't matter at this point.
Exactly. And so there's a couple other players I want to talk about. We'll talk about that in a second, but you brought up a very good point. They don't have a manager. They don't have a sporting director. I think, and this has happened numerous times with expansion teams, they'll sign 8 to 10 players before they even hire a manager. And I always dislike that, because it's like, what if these players don't fit in his system? What if these players don't mesh well with the coach? Have no history with the coach, or just, there's so many things that go wrong. I think that the most essential thing is to definitely hire your manager first. Let him help you build this team. Let him tell you what he's looking for. Let him tell you what his system is. That way he can fit the pieces. And I don't know if you see me tweet this, but one of the managers I've been on the train for San Diego to hire with a little bit of flair, right, just south of the border, is El Piojo. I want to see Miguel Herrera at San Diego FC, because I believe he is a good manager still. I just believe he's gotten bored with Liga MX. He's done it all. He's won the league title. I think he's won Champions League. If he hasn't won Champions League, he's been runner-up a couple times, but he's won the league several times, specifically at Club America. I think that he's just looking for a new challenge. He's been there. He's done that with Liga MX. I think that would be a great hire for San Diego, and he's only traveling 20 minutes, because he just got released from Tijuana, or fired or mutually separated. I think that would be a great first hire, and on top of that, he gives you flair. It's never boring. I know you'll be excited in those meeting or those press conferences because there's never a dull moment with him. He's just a ball of energy, and I would love to see that in MLS.
Let me tell you, after being in a couple of press conferences with him over in Tijuana for Cholos, that guy is just unpredictable, and that's what you want. Like that, just a maverick through and through, and it's a one of one situation. That'd be huge for SDFC to get. Um, how much they would trust an individual like that with this project that's so cemented in the ways of playing and the lineage of thought and again philosophy. It would be interesting, right? Like, do you have everything? Just put exactly the ingredients, and then you get this kind of wild card of a individual to put that passion and put that order in there and really lead a leader of men is exactly what he is. He was just like that as a player, just that same passion and intensity. But I don't believe that it's going to necessarily be as flashy of a signing as anybody's really hoping it is. Again, mostly because the Right to Dream project is so ingrained where they, at this point, either have somebody in mind or they are prepping somebody in order to fill that spot. Because again, you're going to need to speak a couple different languages. You're going to need to be able to speak that veteran language of somebody who's coming in from overseas. You're going to need to speak the language of new academy players coming in with their system and the way that you're pretty much paid to play them in. And at the same time, you need to sprinkle in those MLS veterans who know how to win the MLS and play in the MLS. So that's an area where Piojo may not necessarily be the best at in order to put those three components together. Is it going to turn heads? Yeah, absolutely. Is it really going to fire up these conversations of Cholos versus SDFC? Like, of course, it's going to be great. But is that really the way that SDFC is going? I don't think so. And I think a lot of this pizzazz, the sizzle, actually, Tom Penn, CEO, said it the other day. What's going to be that splash is going to come on the field and with those signings that they'll eventually have, because there are some interesting names and there are people who are wanting to live in San Diego and be a part of it and again reaching out to the club and saying, hey, this is how I'd love to vacation in San Diego, 70 degrees. All right, sign me up.
No, exactly. And the thing with him is, like you said, maybe I'm just being kind of like my own personal belief and like wanting to see him in this league because I've been wanting him to come here for years because I do think he's a good manager. He's very entertaining. He's the whole package. I just hope that they don't make a mistake where a lot of expansion clubs will hire a guy who's either an assistant coach with another MLS club because they think, well, this guy knows the league. Because with some of the players, and we're going to talk about more of the names that are being linked with this club, I just find it hard to believe that an assistant coach on some random team in MLS is going to be able to contain some of the bigger names. Like, I believe that if Piojo tells Chucky Lozano something, tells Sergio Ramos something, they're going to listen to what he says. Now, there might be some butting of heads because that's just kind of like how it does with, especially I think Sergio Ramos will definitely butt heads with any manager he has, right? But I think that when Piojo tells him something, it just comes out. It'll come out a little bit different. Like he'll be listening a little bit more than just some random MLS life or assistant coach who got his first gig as the head coach of San Diego FC.
Yeah, I completely agree where he can definitely get the best out of some people because he's able to reach in and get that passion out of you and get that fun aspect of the game out of you because again you're making essentially a factory of soccer robots with whatever academy you have, not just necessarily this. That's what the output is in the academy mentality. I need somebody to do this. I don't need it to do the best, but I need them to do well enough to get the oiled machine into a position to score a goal. Uh, but man, like I'm there with you. It would grow the league. It would really be a point of pride for a lot of people to say, all right, San Diego tiene Piojo, aquí estamos, let's go. It's going to get some of the Cholo fans over here. Like it does make sense in some narratives, but again, like with how protected SDFC is right now, and as you mentioned it earlier, you don't like when teams start getting players and stuff. It's like Master Chef or whatever. The challenge is like, well, you have A5 Wagyu and you signed Irving Lozano and Ramos, but you got to pair that with some asparagus and ketchup. Go. Okay, well, some chefs can, but it takes a while. And even then, I don't think that's a recipe for success at the end of the day. As we mentioned earlier, SDFC, I do believe, wants to come out winning right out the gate. And so they need to hit everything on point right out the gate as well.
So if you had to pick, that's my number one target, right? And I know you said that that's probably going to be, I don't want to say you said it's going to be a boring hire, but it's going to be someone that we maybe not have heard of, or it's going to be someone out of left field. It's going to be someone that we're not expecting, right? Who is somebody that you realistically like would want them to hire, other than Piojo?
I mean, there are some names out there that are San Diego based, and a lot of the thought process right now is like, oh, who's from San Diego? Sign him up. Let's get him back. Steve Cherundolo. What is he doing? I don't know. He's pretty busy. Um, but there's a lot of just names out there again, like just fantasy booking. Like, man, like you have the money. You have the money. Go wave a bag in front of Jose Mourinho's face and be like, Jose, we can call you Jose here. It's not Jose. Jose, hey, Jose, Pepito, on over. But there are some interesting names coming out, and again, I think what's out there is just feelers for right now. In my dream team scenario, it's going to be somebody who is able to bring the best of two worlds, and that has to be with the Mexican side of things, because that's a free non-DP huge signing you could potentially have, right? And it's difficult for me to necessarily put a name to it because there's so many factors to it, and I know that there's the academy in place, and they have their people who are coming up that know that DNA. You might not know who it is. It's going to be default man number two, but default man number two has been ingrained in this way of speaking. It's a matter of saying, hey, Ramos, you're going to be a leader, but I just need you to be a leader in this way. He's still a uncontrolled, untamed beast at times, but you don't necessarily need that.
No, exactly. And one player or manager I thought off the top of my head who could check a couple boxes. Now, this hire would be kind of split. I think a lot of people would be disappointed, but maybe some people could see the reasoning behind hiring him. Would be a guy who has coached MLS before, a guy who has coached the Mexican national team before, and he's had interest in coming back. Before Steve Cherundolo was hired, this guy was actually a finalist to take over when Bob Bradley was replaced, and that's Juan Carlos Osorio. Now I know that maybe would get people, like I said, on the fence. They're like, I don't want to hire him. That he kind of has been hit or miss with every stop he's had. A lot of people, were not favorable of his time with the Mexican national team. I think that they would probably be more favorable of it now compared to how it's been of late, right? Not as bad as what it's been as lately. But what would you think about hiring someone like Juan Carlos Osorio, a guy who's coached the Red Bulls before, back like in 2007, 2008? So he has the experience. I think he's, speaks English and obviously speaks Spanish fluently. So there wouldn't be any type of language barrier, anything like, preventing him from speaking because they're going to have a lot of domestic players on the team as well. So he kind of checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah. And he's currently, I think the team's called Samalek. I looked it up the other day. But it's an interesting take, because that would be an individual that would promote the academy thought process. And one of the gripes that a lot of Mexican fans had was he's rotating everybody. You have to have some consistency. You have to have this mentality of you have to have a starting 11 set. But at the end of the day, he's very holistic in his way of putting together a squad on match day. So I think that would be a definite benefit. And I mean, I think the theme is the box is checked, right? Like MLS check, has Mexican roots and ties, check. He has experience with high profile players, check. Has the ability to really be creative with his tactics. So many times we think of managers and just say, well, there's just a guy that writes the name of whoever was the most expensive onto the field. Like, no, like there's ways and means to really attack a team and get into it. That would also honestly be somebody who has the vision of how to navigate the MLS and all its parameters and all its rules. Like, hey, at the end of the day, you're not trying to be the first of the table. You're trying to win the championship. And even when you get to playoffs, guess what? This year's rules are different than last year's, which were different than the years before. Guess what? We're back to shootouts instead of penalties. You never know. But yeah, that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, and I think he's I want to say he's like 60 or 61. Like he's not too far gone. Like, I mean, he could at least, manage the club for if he's doing well, obviously, is for a couple years, kind of like set the tone, ease them into the league because it is a tough league as for an expansion team, regardless of what resources you invest. I don't think an expansion team has won the league since 1998, which was the Chicago Fire. So, but I mean, it's very doable to make the playoffs. Making the playoffs is actually, if you're willing to invest in the team, it's favorable to you because more than half the league makes the playoffs these days. 18 teams make it. They have the play in. I'm not a big fan of the play in, but it is what it is. So I think that could be someone to keep an eye on. I don't know if that he's even on the list, but when you're just thinking about connecting the dots, checking the boxes, I mean, him and Piojo have to be high on the list if we're thinking about trying to capture the fan base, get quality coaches, and also know a little bit about the biggest rival league to MLS, Liga MX.
Yeah, a little bit of column A through D, and I think that's where they have to hit is definitely have somebody who's versatile in more than one way because this is an interesting, ambitious project that SDFC is having, and you know, being and doing coverage here locally in San Diego, we find ourselves, my partner Chiva and I, on this project, being critical of the team and just saying, hey, like what's going to happen here? Is an academy basis really going to be a recipe for success? It isn't necessarily across the world immediately. You can point to Ajax and be like, okay, well, they've been there for a while. You can point to FC Northland, who's currently there rung, and they fielded the youngest team in the world by average, and they were in third place. So, okay, there's something there. But if there's something that San Diegans need and want, it's a championship because they haven't had it. The whole team came and left in the Chargers because originally they were from LA, but they came, had fantastic times. Marty Schottenheimer happened. Philip Rivers couldn't get it done. Drew Brees couldn't get it done. They dipped. The Padres, 1998, faced the greatest Yankee team of all time. They couldn't get it done. San Diego Wave almost gets a home field advantage final here for the NWSL, lose in the semifinal. Like, it's just a constant curse with San Diego that, I mean, it's hard to deny, but I think that has to be on the minds of SDFC officials and brasses. This city needs and wants to be a winner, and not just a winner, a championship, have silverware. And, the Wave won the regular season, but they didn't win the championship. That's still something that eludes San Diego, unless you're the MASL indoor soccer 16-time champions, the San Diego Sockers. Shout shout out the indoor game.
Yeah, and also too, didn't the Aztecs? They were runner up a couple of times in the NCAA championship in basketball, right?
Yeah, and it's just a San Diego thing. Like, we're just callous to it. It's just how does, again, going back to football, and how does Nate Kading, the most consistent kicker in the regular season, miss against the Jets at home? Like, that's just not happenstance. Like, there's a dark cloud here, but San Diego was looking for that one team, and if San Diego FC can do that, then that's something that's gonna resonate with everybody. Last time there was immediate success. The Padres got a whole stadium built downtown. Maybe it can happen, and you stop renting at Snapdragon.
I have never seen an expansion team in MLS, and I've been following the league very closely for over a decade now. I have not, and this is when the expansions happen most, right? I haven't seen a single expansion team who didn't spend and won. None. You have to spend to win this league. And San Diego has said, they've come out right out and said, Mohamed Mansour, the owner, seems he's more than willing to spend, right? So they have the recipe to win right out of the gate, and I think they will. Now, one of the players that I wanted to get to, one of my favorite players of all time that has been rumored to come to San Diego FC recently is Kevin De Bruyne.
Yep.
Now, Kevin De Bruyne is still a world-class player. He could play in Europe for the rest of his career if he wanted to. He doesn't have to come over here. He could play for anyone, right? He's still very important to Man City when he's healthy. He's been pretty healthy lately. If they get this signing, this is insane. This is world shattering. Now, obviously, it's not going to overshadow Messi because Messi's Messi. Messi's one of one, right? But this is nothing to stick your nose up at. This is Kevin. Like, any other club in Major League Soccer would take him in a heartbeat. Many clubs around the world would take him in a heartbeat. If you guys are able to pull this off, this will go down as the best signing in expansion team history in Major League Soccer by far.
having Chelsea legend Kevin De Bruyne grace the stadium of Snapdragon in San Diego. Yeah, no, 100%. He's a Chelsea legend. Mourinho just didn't see it. Just same thing with Mo Salah. What could have been, right? But no, I mean that on its own would really signal the intent and put an emphasis on what this team's ambitions are and what they are capable of. There's partnerships with Snapdragon as the center sponsor for Manchester United. They've had several friendlies here. They played with Wrexham last season. They're playing against Real Betis this upcoming summer. So, is there links to that? The Mansour family are Manchester United fans. So, is there going to be a connection there? But that's just kind of laying the groundwork on that side of things. Like everything is kind of, oh, look over here. With Kevin De Bruyne, that signing would just, again, be the best non-Messi signing of this league and could be incredibly important because not only do you bring somebody from overseas who knows how to get it done, can get it done with their eyes closed, with both legs, and on their worst day, like, you know, there's no way you can take that talent away. Um, then you get to the added benefit of having somebody learn from Kevin De Bruyne. You're fielding a lot of young players. You can have that DNA be just an amalgam of the right to dream style with how do we make this fit Kevin De Bruyne, but at the same time, not necessarily utilize him too much because yeah, he's still on the older side of things. With the growth of the MLS and to get that retirement thing out, let's start signing people like Mbappe, and then we'll start talking about the growth of the game. This is huge, though. This is definitely huge, and it's one of those cases where, again, feelers came out because Kevin would like the San Diego market. He would like to play here. He would like to play in the MLS. He likes the MLS or America for holiday. I think where this kind of stopped necessarily being a negotiation was Kevin saw what Messi's making. And now the players that are coming from overseas are starting to ask for those sort of wages and that sort of money, where unless you are Messi, you're not going to get that. And that's just a complete different stratosphere. But if you land somewhere within between the highest paid and Messi, you're still going to land in a pretty median place. But from what I've understood, is that the number asked from Kevin De Bruyne's team was a little bit too much. Like, okay, Kevin, like you're Kevin, you're not Leo. Like we still have to mediate.
You're not even Ronaldo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And but again, to signal how huge that would be incredibly amazing for the league, for not just San Diego, just like this West Coast to have, a premium player just like that. And that's just one of them, because you could potentially have against the intentions to have a Chucky Lozano. He's going to go ahead and feed Chucky Lozano. And then everything starts with Sergio Ramos in the back. Sure. All right. Like let's start putting these things together. You got your 3 DP players right there.
Yeah. And I honestly think for opposing teams, that's kind of scary to think about. And, MLS, just speaking from a league perspective, right? They need other teams to get these type of players. They don't need just everybody to watch Inter Miami. They need people to watch San Diego, the LA clubs, and everything in between, right? And this would help kind of bridge that to that point where people aren't just turning off after Inter Miami, because every game is 7:00 local. Watch Inter Miami game, okay, I'm gonna go chill for a little bit. San Diego's playing at 10. I'm gonna go watch them play. I'm gonna go watch Kevin De Bruyne and Chucky Lozano, right? That's what excites me most. I want to see more teams have the ambition and try to sign these big players, and give the fans something exciting to watch. That would be so cool. If I told you 2 years ago, if this happened, that you could possibly have El Piojo as your coach, Kevin De Bruyne is your midfielder, Chucky Lozano is your winger, Sergio Ramos is your center back, you probably would have thought, man, what are you smoking, dude? Is it legal in Tennessee yet? You know what I'm saying? Like that's what you'd be saying. But this is a possibility. Maybe the Piojo thing is a little far-fetched, but the rest is, that could happen. All this could happen. And if it is, this would be honestly the most exciting expansion team I've seen. Like, honestly, this would be the most exciting expansion team I've seen, the most ambitious, even exceeding LAFC, what they did in 2018.
Yeah, because they have to exceed what LAFC did, and I think if you retrospectively look back of what was done in Los Angeles, it's a nearly perfect execution of what they wanted and they aspired to. And honestly, like that's the blueprint. You have the architects who created that blueprint here in San Diego. It's just a quick drive down the five. And just to give an idea of just a little bit inside baseball, behind the curtain, as far as the staff that's coming together for San Diego FC in the front office, it's an interesting mix of individuals where you have people who have MLS experience, right? And it's just like on the field, you're going to have that MLS experience somehow, right? Bringing individuals from other teams. There's people who are incredibly experienced from in the front office joining from LA Galaxy. You have people from over the border coming in and starting to get those that brain trust going. And it's a really interesting time where it's really innovative. And that's something and a pillar that SDFC recognized with San Diego. Because if you were to tell me what does San Diego stand for as a San Diegan, it's difficult for me to tell you because I don't know. What do you think of when you think of San Diego out in Tennessee?
I think of SeaWorld, honestly. That's what I think of. I think
Exactly.
of SeaWorld.
SeaWorld, the zoo, beaches, cool. Like, I mean, that's a great and weather, a great couple things to have. But as a San Diegan, I can't really necessarily point to be like, well, there's this because it's so many things. And I think that's something that SDFC is really kind of getting to understand. There's a little bit of soul. And this isn't a knock on anything, but at the end of the day, the MLS is a business. At the end of the day, modern soccer is to make green, is to make the money, is to bring that together, right? But it doesn't cost anything, if not a lot of resources to care that 1% to have that flicker of soul and really take to what San Diego is and what it tells you it is. And then it's on the people from San Diego to turn that around and tell the club because they're listening right now. And this is where the building happens because what's going to happen is once these games start going, it's too late. Like you can't, nobody can complain, nobody can because they have to go. It's an incredible, just circus act. What sports are, it's one of the most amazing and remarkable things that I've ever been able to witness just on the back end. And I think that's what I like about doing this coverage. It's just I'm seeing how the sausage is made, and the sausage is pretty fun to see how the athletic side of things, the marketing side of things really come together and give people what they hope to see and spend their money on because it's going to be expensive. That's something that cannot be separated from all of this. Snapdragon Stadium and the tickets are going to be expensive. $50 potentially for parking is expensive just to park to have the right to put your vehicle somewhere in a dark area with probably 3 security guards who are underpaid. That's not a recipe for success. Um, you can go and watch that same experience in that same exact seat with world-class players like Alex Morgan and company with the San Diego Wave, and it's a similar soccer experience. Now, if we're going to talk about the actual game that happens between Wave and the MLS eventually, I don't want to get into that because we can get canceled. I don't know if that's going to be a discussion that we have, but it's okay. We'll just leave it there. It's top tier in every sense, and I really hope that SDFC, the team, is able to replicate that and uphold the top tiered nature of soccer in San Diego.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that they're doing a great job so far. They're shooting for the stars, and I think anybody who's associated with the club or kind of on the fence about whether they're going to support the club have to love what they're seeing. And one of the other things I like that they've recently done is they announced a partnership with Tijuana, right? Now I know Tijuana, if I'm not mistaken, is a relatively new club. I think they've only been around since like what 2007. I want
Yeah,
to say
11
something
years.
about right that. Yeah. So they're a relatively new club as well. So can you tell me a little bit about the partnership and like what do you think San Diego's looking to gain from that? Because obviously both sides are looking to gain something from it. What exactly is the partnership and what is San Diego looking to gain from this partnership with Tijuana?
So it was announced that San Diego FC, in partnership with Cholos Quintles de Tijuana, the Liga MX side, only 25 miles apart, are going to have 5 years of friendlies. These are all going to take place in Snapdragon Stadium. over the course of the next 5 years, and it's really kind of to set the setting for a potential derby, and just just taking those steps to really be amigos at the end of the day, and show, hey, like we see you, we respect you. This is gonna make some cool money. This is gonna make some cool memories. Let's go ahead and do this. Um, it was actually Tijuana who reached out, and it was Presidente Jorge Hank, um, who is the owner of Cholos Quintles, who reached out to Tom Penn and Company and SDFC and said, "Hey, let's have a partnership. Let's go ahead and do this." It's a very preliminary partnership. These 5 games is the first step of what they hope is going to be a long-term kosher relationship, because this is an area that's going to be fought for in terms of the academy. That's going to be the huge component of this, because SDFC is located, its stadium FIFA dictates it has to be 50, I believe, kilometers from the stadium, where you can go ahead and set up a scouting network. Those 50 kilometers extend into Mexico. So it's a very unique situation that SDFC finds itself in, where they can recruit top Mexican talent to come over, be part of the full ride, full scholarship, full education of Right to Dream, and develop those individuals into their first team. But then that's also giving the fact that Cholos Quintles may lose some talent there. Now they're also in competition with some top tier talent that may otherwise, instead of going to Tijuana and playing a Colombian starlet, who then is going to go ahead and be worth 40 million euros, gets to start there. No, they're getting their start in San Diego, and so those are things to consider. But right now, it's a lot of shaking hands and kissing babies, and photo ops, and it's a good first step. It's a great, fantastic first step. It's great for the region. It's great for everybody involved. But it's really going to get interesting when the nitty gritty starts happening. Where, hey, there's this player who's coming over from Europe, and they want to sign him. Say, fast forward this, and it's Chucky Lozano, right? Chucky Lozano in a couple years stays in Europe, and is like, okay, I'm ready to come to this area. Cholos may want to sign him. SDFC may also want to sign him. So who's going to go ahead and just kind of give give the usher in and open the door for the other? Say, hey, go ahead, negotiate. It's just a really interesting dynamic that's going to be happening here, and it's interesting to say the least. And again, these partnerships have been happening with San Diego Loyal, who had 2 friendlies with Cholos in their time here, but this is a next level sort of ambition. And honestly, they don't even know. They don't even know what it's going to be. They don't know what they want. They want to prosper. They want to have good relationships. A question that was like, well, why aren't they playing in Estadio Caliente? Why are all these friendlies in San Diego? Why are they all in the United States? It kind of sucks for people that may want to go and have a great time for a quarter fraction over in Tijuana, and that's exactly it. Tijuana is going to go ahead and get some of the money in dollars, as opposed to going to Mexico and having everything be paid out in pesos. Which, right now, currently, I believe it's about per $1, 17 pesos.
Wow. Yeah, well, and also too, I feel like Tijuana is wanting to expand their reach as well. They're wanting to get some fans, maybe some Liga MX fans, or maybe some fans that just don't really care about Tijuana. Maybe they support another club in Mexico. Try to lure them in, maybe be a supporter of the club, and I think it does benefit both clubs, and I think that it's a great thing when you have two rivalry leagues that close. There's not another MLS and Liga MX club that close. There's none. Texas would be the only other state, and Houston. I think Houston is the furthest south team in Texas. Maybe it's Austin, but they're nowhere close to any Liga MX team. So this is just a rare situation. This is something they had to do, in my opinion, and I don't think it's going to. It's not going to hurt anybody, right? I think it's only going to be mutually beneficial for both parties. Now, the one thing I want to talk to you about to finish this off is talk about the Right to Dream Academy and talk about this world-class facility that San Diego recently announced that they're building. This whole youth program that they're building is the first of its kind in MLS. They're really, like you said, they're really focusing on the youth academy development and trying to build a system, maybe one day to be like IX, maybe to be like Barca's Academy. That's what the goal is, right? I don't know if they're ever going to reach it, but they're trying everything they can to try to reach that goal. So do you think it's going to be successful with the way the steps they're taking, and like how do you think this is going to play out for them?
I'm in something that I usually just say for a lot of things in my life. I'm in a um, prove me wrong scenario where historically, looking at the data across every league that has an academy setting, unless you're top tier La Masia with Barcelona or something of that echelon, of that pedigree, it doesn't necessarily mean championships, right? And I think we were talking about that earlier where this is gonna be something new, it's innovative, it's something that's could potentially and this is where it's really exciting. If this was to work, if the academy setting was to work in the MLS and go ahead and translate into a championship, it's going to revolutionize soccer in America, not Las Americas, in America, in the US of A, all right? It's gonna revolutionize the game. Why? Because instead of saying, "Okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and build a team. Let's put some of this, put some of that. It's that let's build a meal with $20. Well, $5 is your protein, and then everything else is this much." Like you
Yeah.
can really save some money by having and harvesting that academies that you have with talent, not just local talent, and San Diego being the number one market for youth soccer, having over 65, I believe 65 youth teams here in San Diego on its own that have produced world class strikers. They've produced some really good players. Thinking of Brandon Vasquez, thinking of Paul Arriola, Joe Benny Corona, who I went to high school with, and it's incredible just the transformation of putting somebody in an academy setting. His game exponentially grew incredibly by just being in a system that Cholos Quintles had him. And if that's the case that you can do that and replicate that in a setting, and the right to dreams ambition is to be revolutionary, have a new a way of looking at things. If it works, it's going to change MLS across the board because you save yourself some money, you go ahead and put some investment in younger players. It's gonna pay off because you can then sell those players into Europe, sell those players into bigger clubs, but at the same time, you still maintain a certain level. So I'm waiting and seeing. Prove me wrong that this is gonna work because it needs to work in the MLS. It doesn't need to work anywhere else, just in the MLS. And if that's the case, then I think it's gonna benefit not just San Diego, not just the MLS, just US soccer in general. And as a Mexican supporter, as a Mexican fan, that hurts. And it's been happening, and I I've I am one of those rare, Mexican fans that is just like, "Hey, guys, we're in trouble. The US is doing things right." Like, they got this guy, Jurgen Klinsmann, a while back, and he put some academy things, and now it's Pulisic, and now it's all these players that kind of learn this way, and, "Oh, we're still gonna go ahead and do our federation th okay. Oh, we didn't okay. We lost 7-0 in the last Copa America against Chile. Okay. Nations League doesn't matter. Okay."
Well, one of the things that I hope for San Diego's sake is that these kids actually get to play for the first team because there's been several good youth systems or academies in Major League Soccer. Just for example, New York City FC, they came to the league in 2015. They produced players like Gio Reyna, Joe Scally, never played a single minute for the first team, went to Europe as soon as they were discovered or scouted properly, right? Weston McKinney never played for FC Dallas's first team. Christian Pulisic never played for the Union's first team. Now there are a couple there. Ricardo Pepi is probably like the best U.S. developed homegrown player I have seen. Alphonso Davies is definitely the best, but he's Canadian, so we're not going to talk about it at this moment. Okay. But Ricardo Pepi is the best U.S. homegrown player we have seen, and he is an outlier. There hasn't been a lot of Ricardo Pepis. And the thing about Ricardo Pepi is, even though he is a good player, he's still young. He's not world class. Nobody would even consider him to be in that realm. He's still a question mark, right? So that is what the best we produce from the academy of players who've actually played. I'm hoping San Diego has so many players that maybe several of them slip through the cracks. They're not making moves to Europe. They're able to play for the first team, and who knows? Maybe one of those players will be an Alphonso Davies, right? Alphonso Davies is arguably the best left back in the world, and he played for the Vancouver Whitecaps through their system. That is insane to think about. The best left back in the world played for the Vancouver Whitecaps as a homegrown player. And, I mean, that shows you it can happen. And with what San Diego's doing, if anybody's going to be able to do it, it's going to be them with what they're investing and trying to focus on this youth system.
I mean, look, Alphonso Davies playing in the USL. Come on, like that's in the same realm of what's happening today. Actually, not today, just this season, right? The last friendly match that San Diego Loyal played in its existence was its only match at Snapdragon Stadium against the team that's going to play in the Champions League final in Borussia Dortmund. Like it's just happenstance where these things are happening, and I think that at the end of the day, this bodes well for everybody. Like if this is a successful project, it's gonna be beneficial and it's gonna transcend just San Diego. It's gonna transcend so many things where it's for the greater good of the sport. And at the end of the day, with all these things removed, everything removed, any sort of fandom, any sort of anything, for me, I like seeing the game evolve in a natural way. None of this VAR stuff, but well, that's a different podcast. Um, I'm old school, but again, the progression of the game, the sport, the more efficient way of playing, but still remaining and having those intangibles be a part of it. Like that's the romantic side of soccer that it can't lose. But San Diego's definitely going to be on everybody's mind. Like it's going to be interesting if they pull it off, and they will get fans. And that's at the end of the day, if you do that, if you have that intention, if you respect the game, if you respect what San Diego has to offer, if you respect the ball at all times, you're going to have fans come in. You're going to have fans who are loyal, no pun intended, who are coming in and really being one and assimilating with this group. And at the end of the day, soccer wins. So I'm happy. That's all I want. I want the game to grow. And if San Diego, the name San Diego has a star in it, hey, cool. Great.
Yeah, I mean that's why I think a lot of us got into this to begin with, is we're trying to promote the game in this country and help it grow and see what it can be one day. And San Diego looks like it's on the right track. They look like they're doing everything right to succeed from day one in MLS when they enter the league in 2025. They got a beautiful stadium. They're willing to spend. They've got good leadership. And I think it's going to culminate into something very special that's going to be even cooler to say you're part of something in history and was on the foundation. You grew with the club and you got to see it at its foundation. So, well, Tony, thank you so much, man. This has been a blast. Where can people follow you and where can people watch you at?
We have a show once a week. It's 225 weeks in a row consecutively. We haven't missed a week of episodes. Two Balls and a Mic is the name of the podcast, but everything else and the umbrella title of the company is San Diego Football, San Diego.football. That's right. It's not .com. It's not anything. It's .football. That was available. So we took it. Check everything out. Instagram, Twitter, San Diego.football.
Well, I appreciate it, man. We'll have to have you guys back on, or have you back on when maybe some more signings happen, and definitely next year when they play their first match.
Yeah, I'll bring the whole squad next time.
Sounds good, man. Until next time, I will see you all soon.